Hey everybody, what is going on? Good afternoon. Hope you guys are still doing well on this Monday. And this video, we're going to be talking a little bit about ESPN. ESPN usually sets aside the month of July to start taking a look at NFL teams, taking a look at their rosters, taking a look at their players, and talking about who they think is the best, who they think is the worst, and who they think is in the middle. So, they released a really good article earlier this morning, and basically, this is kind of a general summation of where things stand for the NFL teams, the best lineups, and these are starting lineups. So obviously, it's not all 53 guys, and it's hard to know all 53 guys on a team anyway. It's starting lineups. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks, so I thought it'd be interesting to take a look and see what they got, see where the Seahawks are, see where other teams in the NFC West are, and just kind of feel out whether or not we think they have a pretty good we have a pretty good picture of where things are. So this is best projected starting lineups in the league ranked from first to 32nd by Mike Clay, Aaron Schatz, and Seth Walder, three ESPN writers. Pretty familiar with Schatz, pretty familiar with Walder. Not really too familiar with Mike Clay personally, but I do know Schatz and Walder do good work. So when they say something, I think it's worth listening to. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what they have here. So we'll start at the top and just scroll through and talk about the things that need to be talked about. So we all knew the Rams were going to be in first place. Right now, they have the best starting lineup in the league. That's pretty clear. They're incredibly top heavy. They have superstars at positions like quarterback, wide receiver, and now edge rusher. And they have other really good players as well across the rest of the starting lineup. Guys like Kobe Turner, guys like Trent McDuffie, guys like Steve Avila, guys like Devontae, well, maybe Devontae Adams. I don't know where Devontae is going to be this year, but Kyron Williams is a really good running back. They got decent safeties. They've got a generally good starting five on their offensive line. So this is a pretty obvious pick for best starting lineup in football. There's really not too much to say here. Like, if you just take a look at this array of players, there isn't too much of a weakness. The closest thing to a weakness would probably be linebacker and safety, right? Like, they're not great there. I don't necessarily think they're terrible, but I do get the sense that they're just kind of okay there. But you look at everything else, it's pretty loaded. So, yeah, no real objection here. They do a little bit of a write-up here. Biggest strength they have, quarterback. I don't know about that. I'd probably go offensive line because this is a really strong top five in my mind, although the offense that the Rams run does make it better. I might even go edge because if you're just talking about starters, Garrett and Young, that's about as good as it gets in the NFL right now. But regardless, biggest weakness, they have tight end, which on the one hand, I don't agree with that. On the other hand, when you're it's not completely unreasonable, but they probably have the deepest tight end room in football. I know they don't have any one star. I know these guys are not stars, but this is a very deep room of tight ends. So I don't really view that as a weakness, even if you're talking about what's going on at the top. Ferguson should make strides this year. So if I would just say a weakness, I'd say either linebacker or safety, probably. If you like sports, then the best way to make them even better and more exciting is using the PrizePicks app, where it always feels good to be right. PrizePicks makes daily fantasy simple. Just pick more or less on your favorite players and build lineups with a few taps. Whatever sport you're into, and obviously we are now firmly into the NFL offseason, so we're all about baseball. We got some basketball, we got some hockey, whatever it is you like. PrizePicks gives you a fun way to stay locked in while you're watching. Definitely make sure to use the promo code HMA. PrizePicks is hooking up users with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. If you use that promo code, that is HMA. I've had a great time on PrizePicks so far, so definitely get on over to it, check it out, and make sure to get your lineups. And don't forget about team picks, where you can pick winners, spreads, and totals on any major game. So download the app now, use HMA, and get on over to Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And remember, always gamble responsibly. X factor for the Rams is health of Stafford and Adams, which, I've talked about that before. That's the obvious one. And they kind of mention it in this write-up here as well, but the real weakness for the Rams is their depth. And depth is not really going to be a consideration when you're talking about just the starting lineups, but they're very shallow at receiver, and they're kind of shallow at edge. It depends on how you feel about Josiah Stewart. So they're not a team that can sustain a lot of injuries at some of these positions, but that's obviously not a consideration for an article like this. They do list Josiah Stewart as a non-starter to know he's a guy who, if he ascends, could end up making up some of the difference for what the team is kind of lacking. So that's one of your division rivals, number one. And look, if this is the criteria, that's pretty clearly number one. Number two is going to be Philadelphia, which I feel like when you have Philadelphia at number two, and obviously Philadelphia's got a nice roster here, I'm not hating on them, does kind of feel like it highlights how much better the Rams starting lineup is compared to every other team in the league, right? Like, the Rams have really gone all out to make this starting lineup as good as they can, in some cases at the expense of their depth. They have real issues there at receiver, somewhat at edge. If Aaron Donald doesn't unretire, then maybe even on defensive tackle, linebacker, cornerback, safety. They've got issues of being shallow. But when it comes to the starting lineup, you compare their starting lineup to what the Eagles have, who are supposedly number two. That feels like a big drop off here, right? Like, the offensive line's not as dominant as it used to be. It's good, but it doesn't have the five monsters up front anymore. They don't have A.J. Brown. Saquon was not the same player last year. They've lost stuff at edge and haven't fully replaced it yet. Like, it's obviously a really good roster. I don't strongly object to them having the number two spot, but it feels a little underwhelming. And then you get to number three, and that's where the Seahawks come in. So if you were wondering if ESPN thinks we have does ESPN think we have a good roster? The answer is definitely yes. They ranked us number three, and you take a look at it, and you think about it, and it makes sense. Now, for some reason, they got Charbonnet as the projected starter at running back. I mean, I guess eventually that's probably the case, but even when Charbonnet gets back this year, I'm not convinced that that's going to be true, but I don't think it would make a big difference either way. So their write-up is, just to see what they say here, biggest strength, interior defensive line, with Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, and Jaron Reed. No mention of Riley Mills because, again, this is starters. They're not really going to talk about depth. But that is probably our strength. So that is almost certainly correct. Biggest weakness is running back, which is also kind of obvious at this point, especially because our starter, quote unquote, has a torn ACL that he's still coming back from. But even if he was healthy, running back would probably be the primary issue. You look at everything else on this team, we're good. Maybe edge is an area that could stand to be a little bit better, but it's pretty obviously running back. X factor is Shaheed. I definitely agree with that. I think that if he can become a big-time receiver with the Seahawks in the 2026 season, that is a big, big improvement. And non-starter to know Derek Hall. And we certainly know about Derek Hall. That's a pretty good pick. So I'm pretty amenable to this. I don't know if we have a worse roster than Philadelphia. I'm looking at it, right? There's some similarities, right? They have a better offensive line, but both teams have the benefit of having a lot of continuity on their offensive lines. Both teams have one stud receiver. Obviously, ours is a lot better, but after that, it's a little bit more questionable. I understand that people aren't super excited about Cooper Kupp at this point. They do have a better running back, although I am wondering about Saquon. They got really good stuff on the front. Their edge is a little bit substandard. Like, if I were to compare our roster to Philly's roster, just in terms of the starting lineups, I'm not sure how I would feel about that. That's tough. Like, they're really strong at corner, right? But that safety room, I don't know about these safeties. If I know Cooper DeJean might swap out to safety this year. They might need him to do that just to balance things out a little bit. But I don't know. That's a tough one. There might have been some bad coaching with Philly last year, and they'll look a lot better this year with a real offensive play caller. But I don't know. There's something the luster, the shine is off the apple with the Philly roster for me on some level. All right, so then we got Buffalo, then we got Baltimore. Okay, Detroit. I feel like Detroit should probably be a little bit higher, but New England, sure, and especially now with AJ Brown, I can see it. Denver, okay. Number 8, number 9 is Houston. I think they should probably be a little higher personally. Green Bay, okay, sure, sounds about right. And then we've got a division rival at number 11, the San Francisco 49ers. Lot of it's a star-studded front line, right? It's a star-studded starting lineup for sure. This really highlights the fears that you have concerning age and injury stuff, right? You've got, I imagine, a future Hall of Famer in Christian McCaffrey. You've got the best fullback of his era in Juszczyk. Mike Evans, future Hall of Famer. George Kittle, probably future Hall of Famer. Trent Williams, future Hall of Famer. Nick Bosa, former Defensive Player of the Year. Fred Warner, perennial Pro Bowler. You got Dre Greenlaw back. Like, it is a roster full of big names, but they can't even crack the top 10. So that does kind of highlight the issues you have with a roster this old. So biggest strength they have quarterback. Remember that you do have Mac Jones, and the article does bring that up a little bit. I would probably say their strength should be more. I kind of feel like maybe linebacker, because now they have Greenlaw back. But I understand that linebackers don't impact the game the way quarterbacks do, so even that's kind of tough. So, okay, I'm not against it. Biggest weakness, interior defensive line. They did add Odigizua, which I thought was a really good add, but you've got very little other than that. Alfred Collins, CJ West haven't really proven anything yet. So, yeah, that's definitely the weakness of this team. Maybe you could talk about the offensive line, but Shanahan does a good job disguising that. So, I don't necessarily think that's the end of the world. X Factor would be Mike Evans. So, obviously, the injury stuff looms large because he always gets hurt. Sometimes he plays through it. Last year he didn't. And he if he can make a big impact for that team this year, that will wipe out a lot of the issues that they project to have otherwise. So makes sense. Non-starter to know would be Deshaun Stribling, and I agree with that. He's not listed here in their top 3, but if Stribling can be good for them, then they've got a legitimate offense here. The main thing that I'm wondering is McCaffrey going to play running back or wide receiver this year? How are they going to deploy him? It's a little bit confusing, right? Because last year he clearly had no gas left as a running back, and you would hope that they're able to find a, for their sake, they would find a way to utilize him that doesn't involve just handing him the ball. I don't think he can really do it anymore. So, reasonable, but it does really highlight how, I mean, this roster, think about it, even a couple years ago, it would have been top 3. But time comes for us all. All right, we got the Chiefs, we got the Chargers, Cowboys. Kind of feel like the Cowboys should be higher, but I guess the defense is a big problem. Bengals, okay. Feels kind of funky they're not higher, but they still got a lot of problems on that defense. Jacksonville, okay. Bears, Buccaneers, Steelers, and then we get to the Colts. So top 20, still no Cardinals. And I do want to keep going till we get to the Cardinals, but we're going to have to keep going for a little bit here. Commanders, Vikings, Giants, Panthers, Jets, Saints, Raiders. Wow, we are getting down to it. Titans and the Cardinals tied for 29th. Barely making the top 30. Barely making the top 30. So I know we don't really care about the Cardinals because they seem to be at least a year away. So it's not like we're really competing against them, but they're still a division team, and you can see how far behind they are everybody else. And you look at their roster, you can see why. I mean, they've got Trey McBride, they've got Paris Johnson Jr., and they've got Buda Baker, and everything else. I guess Will Johnson. I'll throw Will Johnson in there. Josh Sweat's good, but he doesn't want to be there, apparently. Everything else, we either don't know or we do know, and it's not all that appealing. So deserved, but it does highlight the talent difference. Biggest strength is tight end, which, I mean, that's kind of the issue, right? And I mean, their second tight end is Elijah Higgins, who not really a big name or anything like that. It's all about Trey McBride. So he is, I mean, don't get me wrong, Trey McBride is a phenomenal player, but that's not really something you want to be the strength of your team when you don't really have much at quarterback and you don't really have great receivers to take the pressure off of them. Biggest weakness would be quarterback. I mean, I'd probably go offensive. Well, the Bizontis pick might kind of compensate for some of their weakness up front. I feel like offensive line's a bigger issue than quarterback because the quarterback thing doesn't really matter that much, right? And then you take a look at like what they got up front. Darius Robinson at this point is probably a bust. Roy Lopez, maybe Walter Nolan will be good, but seen very little of him. I think that's all worse than quarterback personally. Michael Wilson, X Factor, interesting, right? He has shown positive signs before. Non-starter to know, BJ Ojulari, I like that one. I like that one. Because if Sweat gets traded, Ojulari is going to have to step up big, and he's got a lot of talent. He has been very good in this league before, but it was a very short period of time. So that's a really good non-starter to know. And then the rest of the list, we got the Falcons tied for 29th, Cleveland Browns, and Miami Dolphins. So that's where the Seahawks stand. That's where the rest of the division stands. Seems reasonable. I'm not against it. I do think that third is probably about correct. Like, if I look at the teams right behind us, I think we have a better roster than the Bills. The Bills have a lot of question marks defensively, and I don't love their receivers. Ravens, again, like kind of remaking themselves a little bit post Harbaugh. And they got issues at corner in my mind. I don't really like any of their corners that much. So I think we're better than that. And then Detroit. Detroit's interesting because they are very stacked, I think, offensively. And they have a lot of star power defensively. Lions might be a team that I bump up a little bit higher than this, but I think us being in third more or less checks out. All right, let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. More videos coming later. I know ESPN's going to be doing some other stuff in terms of like ranking players and talking about who they think is the best. So definitely stay tuned for that. We'll be going through it. I know they already did running back today. I'm not going to make a video about that because the Seahawks obviously don't have a running back on that list because, of course, they don't. But as that series goes on, we'll have some fun stuff to talk about. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Everyone have a good rest of your day.